Okay, hey everybody, I'd like to welcome everyone to the January edition of the Southeast Lean Network. This is being recorded, so again, if anyone doesn't want their picture appearing, they can turn off their camera, or you can put bags over your heads if you're in person. Might improve some of this. But I'd like to introduce and welcome Richie first. I'll leave Richie do his own profile and bio and explain the purpose of his talk. And I hope everyone enjoys it. We can take questions as we go, but what I would ask, just to keep a bit of order to it, if you have questions, just put your hand up. I'll give you a nod and I'll interrupt you when you're ready, just so there's a bit of order to it. Richie, over to you.
Thanks, Lee. So I suppose just start off, thanks, Lee, for organising this, and thanks, Red Hat, for an extremely impressive setup. The AV is, top standard, and thanks for everyone for coming on the room. Thanks for dialed in. So I'll be speaking today on people first. So a lot of the continuous improvements, and more specifically, Lee can get very technical very quickly. So today's kind of people-focused approach kind of fits with the talks that have been delivered over the last couple of months. So I hope you enjoy it. So this is kind of just a quick look at my CI journey so far. So what that's looked like from top to bottom is, since I started my kind of work on CI, gone through various quality continuous improvement, consultancy and managerial roles with two companies, but with a lot of different healthcare settings. So hospitals, cancer centres in Ireland and in the US as well. So a lot of what you're going to see today will have a healthcare context, but I hope that everyone can try and relate that back to their own industry, or see how the concepts are quite broad and not just specific to healthcare. So I had a funny conversation this morning with two good friends of mine. They were talking about someone on social media who's been very annoying lately and very active on their stories and profiles and everything, and spoke at a small conference recently. And we agreed. Well, my two friends said to me that we shouldn't assume just because someone has a microphone, they know what they're talking about. And so this is very much me thinking out loud now for the next 30 minutes, thinking out loud and, trying to tie in some academic and some evidence-based stuff, but really observations from my own career. So I'm not drawing any conclusions here, but everyone else to try and think how they can draw on their own conclusions. So why do we go people first? Because people are just everywhere. This is one of those slides where I look at it and I've definitely left some roles or people types out of this, and it kind of makes you think, how do we get anything at all done, considering how many people there are in companies? And so behind each one of these roles, there's personality, there's different levels of experience, there's different industries. So it's a complex environment to navigate when you're practicing CI. So I know I mentioned that I'd speak a little bit about team dynamics. So how, I've been quite lucky in my career so far. I've been part of some great teams. I've formed teams, managed teams, and every team is different. They all bring different experiences, And if there's one thing about teams, you can be sure of is that if I'm in a meeting with 10 team members, there'll be one person that leads the conversation, one person who says nothing, and other people who interrupt. Some people are rude, and who will interrupt the leader. There'll be one actual person who maybe knows what they're talking about, one person who tries to know what they talk about. So there's all these different things we're trying to navigate when practicing continuous improvement. And that's just the reality, but it's how do we try and manage that and form strong team dynamics to really deliver good quality continuous improvement. So I've done some very in-depth research into this, and I checked Instagram. So how do I manage complex teams? First approach would be trying to find common ground between the teams. So first example here, you'll see 3 different people types: pirates, Santa, and gangster rappers. They all have ho in common. Bank robbers, DJs, preachers, man taking your sweater off all have put your hands up in the air in common. So it's just a kind of funny way of thinking that people do have stuff in common. So if you're lucky enough to be managing a project team and trying to understand your people, try and find the common ground between them, which is a lot easier said than done. So if that doesn't work, then you try and speak to them. So people love talking about themselves, you know. So I put this in, I don't know if you can hear it or not, but so what I do is, you know, people like talking about their kids, people like talking about their hobbies, people like talking about their work, you know, and so there's so many different things to try and find common ground on. It doesn't just have to be what the continuous improvement or project objectives are. Now in saying that, the more scientific approach to this would be, you know, find constancy of purpose, you know, shared vision, shared understanding. But all that, you know, is great and needs to happen. But, you know, making connections and finding common ground can build a foundation for getting that shared purpose. And then what was it? So it was 2 things. And then the third one was, so what if you have someone who I'd call tricky customer? Like, what if it's a really strong personality, you know, doesn't want to talk about their kids, doesn't want to talk about this, it's a difficult person to work with or manage. And what can you do for them? What do they need? What appeals to them? Do they need results? Do they need this? Do they need that? So find out what they need. And, you know, sometimes that takes work. So provide it to them, let them see, achieve it. And, you know, that's something back to change management, getting buy-in, like, you know, find out what they need to get their buy-in. Organizational structure. So if we're going to say, like, we want to go people first, so first we have to understand people. And if you want to understand people, then you have to understand their environment. And the vast majority of us are in an environment where we're trying to understand something that looks like this. Maybe, you know, people are from different functional areas, maybe they're different disciplines, maybe they're in different locations, maybe they're in different tiers, you know, maybe they're junior, senior, executive. So there's loads of different factors that feed into understanding what the organizational structure is. So how can we even start to put people first then when it's that complicated? So Simon Sinek knows, so he talks about these 3 circles, the golden circles. So the why, the how we do it, and the what we do. So great books by that man, some great videos and TED Talks. But when I think about this and how we put people first, so it's the how. So that's where the lean fits. Lean fits with the how, continuous improvements fits with the how, respecting people fits with the how. So everything we kind of look at from here on, you'll see that it's mostly the how. There'll be other people probably on this call that would be better to speak to the why and to the what products, but I'm going to speak to the how here. And just the why, how, and what. So, you know, we talk about excellence and we talk about organizational structures, and so Red Hat have a great print on the wall here. They have their mission printed on the wall there. So the mission is the what, is what I would consider the what. So, you know, we always say mission, vision, and values, but according to Simon Sinek, it should really be, well, what's the vision, what's the values, and what's the mission? Starting with the vision is your why. How we do it is our values. Then for this talk, we're exploring the value of respecting people first. And then what we do then is our mission. So it's kind of important to understand all this, especially in bigger organizations. So the more we understand that, the more we can navigate it, the more we can apply lean and continuous improvement, really apply it and get good results. So why do we practice continuous improvement? Because, you know, change is inevitable. So here's just an example. It's like people in the room might be familiar with these examples, but we have Blockbuster, Kodak, BlackBerry, and Toys R Us. What do they all have in common? you know, they filed for bankruptcy at some stage. I think BlackBerry is still around, but it has filed for bankruptcy. Toys R Us opened a store again this year. Blockbusters is gone. Great book by Netflix. The Netflix founders on how they pitched to Blockbuster and Blockbuster. So yeah, going back one step, Blockbuster focused on their what? Blockbuster focused on we produce DVDs and videos, and Netflix came along and said, well, we can do this, and they said, no, we're not changing our what, and now Blockbusters is gone and Netflix is here. So again, just interesting. So that's why practicing continuous improvement is so important. So it's part of our how, and how do we practice continuous improvement then? We practice it like Toyota did. So continuous improvement and respect for people. And loads of papers, loads of websites, loads of research out there about continuous improvement and respect for people, but it's a lot harder to put it into practice. So I've used a variation of this slide before and changed it in the sense that, you know, so how do we operate as a business? We practice continuous improvement and people first, respect for people. And I used to think, you know, well, we focus on our continuous improvement and then we focus on our respect for people, and we do it at the same time. But the more I do projects, the more I realize it's actually like a really vigorous game of ping pong. You're constantly back and forth. Like you do one thing, it's continuous improvement, and then you're playing catch up to try and say, well, did I treat this person with respect? And so look, it's constant effort to maintain the balance between change, you know, innovation, continuous improvement, and demonstrating respect for people, putting people first. And it's, you know, an ongoing activity. It's not just a once off. I spoke to this slide before, so it might be repetitive for some people listening and some people who watch the video back. But so I like using that continuous improvement picture because, you know, why do we practice continuous improvements? You know, healthcare, it's not practice. You know, people get hurt. You know, medication errors are huge. This example was a really famous one. Dennis Quaid's twin babies, they're only a few days old, and there was a medication error, and they were administered 10,000 units of a blood thinner instead of 10 units, and the babies nearly died. And like, to common sense, we were speaking about earlier, like the vendor was already aware of this issue, and you can see there the picture's a little bit small, but the vendor did change packaging, and because they were aware of the issue. But the old packaging that highlighted the difference between the two units, the old packaging was still circulated in the hospital, so it was on the shelf and it was used by mistake. But again, 3 babies the year before died from the same mistake. So it's continuous improvement isn't optional in a healthcare setting, but the principles still apply to any sort of setting. And how to do that in a healthcare setting is a lot easier spoke about than doing. So constantly demonstrating respect for people, going to their workplace, speaking to them, making them part of it. Giono said, you know, confirm failure with your own eyes. So like if the numbers look bad, go and speak to people and understand why they look bad, all this type of thing. There's a great kind of segue into this paper by Peter Hind, and it looks at the people value stream. So it's this whole human lean and people first is like what we're talking about now. And he looks at continuous improvement and respect for people and this functional gap between the two. Great paper on it, and it's sort of continuous improvement has been very much up until now driven by operations, you know, lean, Six Sigma, and the respect for people up until recently was really driven by HR, you know, the culture, employee engagement, all at that side, but the two sides don't really understand each other. And so again, trying to fill that gap is what good lean and CI practitioners should do. And so we're going to kind of look at, well, how do we fill that gap? And we'll look at that in a minute. I like this video to put it in because I found it the other day, and it's a bridge, a tunnel being put in a bridge over a weekend in Germany. And it's fast forward, so they've done that in a weekend, and that looks so much easier than to try and fill that functional gap in the other bridge we were talking about a minute ago. And I also like this video because a lot of people there skilled people doing their job, and it's a long time before AI can do that. Which I just think is an interesting point.
It's a long time before Ireland can do that.
Good point. So we speak about lean a little bit because we are the Southeast Lean Network. So problem with lean principles is once you kind of understand them, then they click, you start seeing them everywhere. So I thought I'd kind of look at, well, how do the lean principles look from a kind of people perspective? So we say define value. So how can I treat people with respect, people first, and define value? And people value time. And so getting up and going to speak to someone rather sending an email, and arriving on time for meetings is respecting people. So many different things from a people first point of view can be put in that bucket of our lean principle. Value stream, I was talking about this in a hospital in Dublin the other day. Value stream, it's different business units, they're all related. So, you know, if you have to respect the processes, and, you know, a change in one area might impact people in the other area. And so the decisions made in the value stream impact people. So it's important for practicing people first that we really consider the whole value chain and not just your own environment. Establish flow. So there's some great books on, you know, reading a stated flow yourself for like study and being creative, and, you know, there's also out there for getting in the right state of flow and productivity going up and everything. So establishing flow in your own work, in your own workspace, you know, loads of different things that have people impact there. Create pull. So practice people first and try and pull the best out of people. Pull the best out of people and pull people in the right direction rather than push things onto them and push them in a direction. And so it's that whole concept is invaluable when managing big teams and with strategy deployment. And then pursue perfection. So constantly upskill, coach, mentor, develop. Am I doing on time?
Good, yeah.
Yeah. So people first and behaviors. So people first and behavior. So I have notes here, and the first thing I say is socks. So when my daughter was born, we went through a period, first 5 weeks of her life, very challenging. And we knew we were prepared for it, but she spent quite a bit of time in ICU on Temple Street. And one day, and it was during COVID, so only one of us could go into ICU at a time. And so my partner went in, and I got a picture of 2 pink socks, and it was on day 4, and she had pink socks on. And it was the first bit of clothes that had been put on her, because there was absolutely no clinical reason why that nurse put those socks on. Like, she's in a plastic unit, it's temperature controlled. So there's absolutely no reason why those socks were put on. But they were put on. I got a picture out in the waiting room, and it was a real big win for us that socks got put on. And so it was that person's personality that played the role and that behavior of putting those socks on. I'll never forget it. Likewise, you can see on the left here, the blue #1 cup in the Stackham Cups was, we have a lot of ongoing outpatient appointments. So there was a physio in Waterford, a physio appointment. This was left aside at the nurse's station with Richie Dawson, and we were looking for this #1 cup was missing, and it was really annoying us. Like, Eve didn't care, she's only little, well, she was only like a couple of months old. But again, the behavior there, the physio put the sticker Richie Dawson on, and it was there. And about a month later that we went and, you know, got that. And it's just like absolutely discretionary. You know, they didn't have to do anything like that. But it's those types of things that put people first and respect people. And it's that's what I have to say about Temple Street, and that's what I have to say about facilities in Waterford. But like, what I'd ask everyone here is, like, what do your customers say about you? You know, what are they saying about you? Is it good or is it bad? There was a HIC report published, I think it was last week. Like, it was published on the 15th of January. It's published by HIC on the 15th of January about an assessment in Waterford and Wexford, basically two slap in Waterford and Wexford, and some of the stuff in the report was literally in quotes from what was said. It was conducted interviews, so it was a planned assessment. And some of the quotes: no social work for 3 years, never felt we were given support, no support or advice given for a child with disability. No one advocates for us. So this is all the parents or carers, left all at sea by ourselves. Like, so the report, and this is all public access, they published it, they have to publish it. But again, that's what their customers, TUSLA's customers, are saying about them. So like, what are your customers saying about you? And yeah, I think it's something that we should all really, really consider, because again, and one of the things I read about in that report was one of the top social workers said, oh, I don't want to build, now I'm paraphrasing, but I don't want to build too much of a relationship because I won't be here long. That's basically what it said in the report, and that was in quotes. So they're not the type of behaviors I want in my organization, and that's the responsibility of leaders. So not necessarily blaming anyone at that level, at that front line, but there's a lot of work to be done there, a huge amount of work to be done there, and seeing that report. But on a positive note, there was a similar report on one of the facilities in Ferrybank that was published last week, and it was really, really positive. Like, so, you know, there is some really good stuff, but there's some really, really behaviors that need work as well. The whiteboard in the middle of the screen looks at, I speak about the Kano model too much, but it's how you model experiences or satisfaction. So, you know, fundamental expectations drive experience down, not necessarily what people are paying for. Like, people expect service they pay for a service and they receive it, but if they pay for a service, they receive it, but the person is rude, they didn't feel safe, or lack of empathy, that drives it down. And we have data for that, but it's little things like the socks drive it up. So it's the little things drive it up, and it's the expectations of basic fundamental needs drive it down. So something to be mindful of when we're looking at or trying to understand our customers. So we understand our people and we understand our customers, and that's not just customers who pay for our services or products, it's internal customers as well. Implications of behaviors. So we kind of discussed some negative behaviors there. So this is the Swiss model, the healthcare lot for risk management. So risky behaviors, you know, they're there. Negative outcomes are possible. So it's our responsibility then, when we're practicing continuous improvement, to try and put protective processes in place, whether they're system processes, physical controls, and behavioral controls, all these different things. But there's still a risk that all these errors or defects will get through all our protective processes, and then there'll be a problem or an adverse event. In the RT news there this week, that a teenager died due to a tumor, and they have named the hospital that they actually missed. The radiology report missed the glaucoma, so it could have been identified and prevented, but it was missed. And that's not to say that it's anyone's fault, but these things do slip through. So it's how many layers do we put in our processes to try and reduce the risk of that happening. And so the point I'm trying to make there is we can put people first and still manage people. Doesn't mean we can't manage people, and behaviors need to be managed. So we build processes that trend the right behaviors in line with our values, which is put people first to get the right outcomes. Saw this cool video as well. It was piloted there last week. Is a Chinese motorway, and they put lasers to try and keep people awake. So talk about putting in an additional control to try and reduce the risk. Because if you think of even getting your driver's license, so there's loads of systems in place, loads of layers of cheese in place to try and make roads safe, but stuff slips through. So that's the Chinese trying to put, but we're going to put in another thing there, another layer to try and keep them safe, and we're going to try and keep people awake. The big thing here is, like, we're not saying I use risky behavior, not negative behavior, because, we're not blaming people here. It's all about, if there is a problem, learn from it and then add a slice of cheese. That makes sense. Organizational learning. So again, sometimes organizations kind of have to learn the hard way when things go wrong. And so it's how we react to them and still demonstrate respect for people, and then practice continuous improvement is when we're really, really practicing high quality CI. And then, like, this was published by the 22nd of November 23, and it's from the best the State's Claims Agency. And really, they're like catastrophic claims relating to babies and maternity services. So what they classify as a catastrophic event is something with an estimated liability of over 4 million euro, and or an event that results in serious disability, permanent incapacity to a baby, for example, cerebral palsy. So in this period, in this report from 2015 to 2019, 80 of these events resulted in claims. And if you look, so the point I'm trying to make is, if you look at what the prominent issues were, okay, regardless of the quantity, absent or poor documentation resulted in one of those claims. So 64% of the sample, that was the cause. Failure to interpret or recognize an abnormal error. Failure to monitor fetal heart, 51%. Delay in escalation. Inappropriate use of oxytocin. Inadequate assessment. They all sound very much like people-driven categories. And I'm not saying they're simple or easy, but they very much, like, there's no technology failures there. But maybe that's a wrong statement. For just maybe if more technology was appropriately placed there, it might have reduced the risk of some of those things happen. But they all very much come down to stuff that were in people's control and could have been prevented. So I like looking at these reports because it grounds me, and it's very fact-based, and it's all public access. But there's people behind those numbers, so it's very real. It's important that we look at them, even though it might make some of us uncomfortable to hear.
You're 30 minutes.
How much time do I have?
30 minutes max.
Oh, left. Oh, sure, that's loads of time.
Max.
No, I'm nearly going to wrap up and have a conversation then. So, achieving targets. So I put this in because people were talking so much about people and speaking so much about people, and it's like, well, what about targets? What about KPIs? What about metrics? And at the end of the day, we're all part of or running what we hope will be a sustainable business. And that's what we need to do at the time, regardless of what our mission statement is. So I just put in an example of some metrics at the top. So, and in my head, this is dummy data. This is just something in my head that, like, say I was in a company and I introduced, say there's 5,000 people and I introduced a new ERP system, or I introduced some fancy new technological advancement, and my productivity is up at 85%. That sounds great. It's a good software, so I'm at 91% quality. Client is at 70% satisfaction, so that doesn't sound great. There's something not really adding up there. And then, oh wait, my staff satisfaction is actually down at 15%. So all these targets, I'm sure, are perfectly achievable, but they have to be in balance, with a balanced approach to getting those targets. So if I put in a new system really quickly, and I achieve those productivity gains, and I achieve quality, and depending on what you would define quality as, then I'm at risk of, staff satisfaction, going down, people get frustrated, people end up leaving. So, you know, so KPIs and metrics are attached to processes, and it's the people that one write the processes or contribute to the processes that impact those KPIs. So all the KPIs, metrics, and everything start with people first. And I'm looking at the technology there, and technology, we were speaking about it earlier, the rate of change of technology is like, there are very few big organizations or anyone can keep up with it now at this stage. So technology, you know, changes a lot quicker than people. So again, you need to be mindful of that approach, and, you know, introducing new technologies, but still demonstrating respect for people and using continuous improvement to introduce technology. So maybe, you know, it's a lot easier said than done again, but I think we all need to be mindful that technology is not going anywhere. And it's very difficult to keep up with for some companies. But again, you know, it starts with people writing the processes, and the processes enabling the technology. So if you change one, it all really needs to be changed in one way or form, or at least reviewed. Risk, there's a risk here of the next slide being a bit chaotic, but we have time to deal with it. So again, wanted to do a bit of reality check.
From your telephone.
Yeah, so they're all
on the phone getting out of hand. Your telephone service over to dial. Now, let's use
so this is the rate of change technology. So video number 1 is a 1954 instruction on how to dial a telephone. So it's 1954. And then in the 90s,
the ultimate and hands-free phone design. Watch. Simply attach the special double back fastener to any phone. Then attach the phone and headset.
And then we look at, so Shakira see the camera phone for the first time in 2002. That's massive news. Look, okay. It's the least quality, the worst quality on the video. Yeah, but anyway, she's blown away by the fact that a picture was taken with her on a cell phone. Which that's 2002. Then we look at the iPhone 15, the quality of the imagery. So it's insane. So now we're in 2024. And then saw this the other day. So this is
back and forth between the broadcast.
Cool. So this is what
slice of reality.
Disney
Every
and
driver's
Apple are
precise
looking
position,
at putting
compare
these
racing lines, and most
kind
of
of
all,
augmented
understand the
reality and
geography
different
of the train.
things. Like, you
Something
know,
that's
so
almost impossible.
really incredible. But like,
TV.
at that rate of change, it won't be that long before that's more mainstream than you would think.
I'm most interested in. Or let me
just interesting. Now that's not meant to be a comprehensive review of technology advancement or anything, but it's just a way of looking at it, and it's interesting. Like from 1954
replays that have to blend
up until now,
before being shown.
it's not that long. So this is a lot more comprehensive, and I was looking at this this morning. So 1849, the first telephone. 1950 then, so nearly 100 years before the pager. And then you can just see the internet came 1989. So you can see it creeping up. Pokemon Go went live in 2016 and had 880 million users in 80 days, introducing AR to the mainstream. So Pokemon Go brought to a new level is what we were looking at there a minute ago, that Disney and Apple to be able to do. And then we see ChatGPT, really hot topic. So we're talking about putting people first and AI and how does it all fit together. And again, it's not going anywhere. You know, if anything, it's going to become more mainstream. And so this isn't like, I'm not a technology expert, but it needs to, this balance of people, process, technology, it has to be maintained for continuous improvement, you know. And again, the technology is speeding forward. And so I thought it was interesting. So I had a look on LinkedIn, and I found an article on the Toyota way is what we were looking at, the continuous improvement and respect for people. So I was like, oh, that's a nice article. So I highlighted the article and pasted it into ChatGPT just to see what it would say. I said, do a summary of that page, and it did it. And just the thing that actually stuck out more to me than anything it said was the LinkedIn page displays a user profile with 0 notifications. So first of all, I didn't ask it to tell me that. But it read that I didn't have any notifications on the screen. Kind of cool. or scary. And so we're going back to how. So AI is not going to be it'll be what some people do, but it's not going to be what I do anyway. It's going to be how we do it. And so it's our responsibility then to look at developing our people about how they use technology like this, what companies you partner with to bring these mainstream and into your companies, and how to use it ethically, it's huge. And they're the type of policies that are going to have to be written now. So again, people like,
Finish your point.
okay.
Question then.
I'm kind of getting a little bit repetitive, but I'm just trying to, that sort of people will have to write the processes for that type of technology to be used appropriately and ethically.
I want to interrupt you because I'm a technologist, and that's it.
Yeah.
One of the big challenges with AI that you kind of hit there is a balance between what they call hallucinations and creativity. So a hallucination for AI will be if you ask it the question, who's going to win the next World Cup? Hasn't happened yet, right? So they will take a prediction and say whether the number one ranked team in the world is France, so I think France is going to win it. But then you can tell it, no, actually Spain is going to win it. And it will accept what you said. And then you can base further facts on Spain winning the World Cup. That becomes a hallucination. And the challenge there from a people perspective that are exposed to tools like that, a hallucination will send them down the wrong path, or something creative could send them down the wrong path. And there's no current balanced middle ground.
And as people, we don't understand this, and this capability. So when I'm working with administrators or associates, and I do introduce it because they waste a lot of time, and it's a great tool, and I use it. But I always say, don't ever ask it to do something you don't already know.
Yeah.
Because I've asked it to do stuff and the facts have been wrong, and I would say wrong, and likewise, I asked it to try, and because I was going to just try to make the point of like write a timeline for technology advancement and put it in a table, and I really struggled, just because it was trying to it wasn't getting the dates right. Do you know what I mean? So there's limitations there, and I know people as well who don't use it ethically, and they will get caught out eventually. But look, it's interesting. It's not going anywhere. But again, it's how we do develop our people to know how to use it right. Gartner had a great so they're great for market trends and research and stuff like that, from an industry perspective. And they had a great kind of 8-minute think again thing on it. And it was like, there's going to be a profound shift in how human and machines react. AI shouldn't be hyped, but it shouldn't be underestimated. And Lee, this is kind of what you were saying earlier, it's going to develop more jobs in the long run. And it's going to give people more time to think, but look, interesting topic. So if we're saying that we put people first and their control of everything, we need to really focus on capability development in organizations. So whether that's training, and maybe not just academic, maybe that's industry-led training, and how can we build our people to do the things we're talking about here and to do them properly. And it's interesting that Gartner again released yesterday a survey poll, and they surveyed, don't quote me on it, I think it was 180 CFOs, and what were their top priorities for 2024, and the top of the list was digital transformation. And so and that's from a CFO, not an information officer, that's from the financial side of it, so there's financial implications to everything we're speaking about here with technology as well, and not putting people first. So I'm derailing a little bit, but I always wrap up talks like this kind of like, what would Deming do? And there's some great stuff out there on deliberate developmental opportunities and organizations, so being deliberate about developing your workforce and your capability within the organization. And I like this table because it aligns Deming's principles for quality improvement and continuous improvement, the OG of quality, and aligning systems thinking, continuous improvement, employee involvement, learning and adaptation, leadership role. That all aligns with deliberate developmental organizations, so building capability development in. yeah, so again, kind of just closing the loop there. To the chairman, first we build people, then we build cars. So, you know, that's where the Toyota way really excelled was, you know, building their people, doing their continuous improvement on the front line, getting them innovating and to change the wash and make the wash waste free and value added in lean speak. Yeah. And this is a picture from the office, and it says, excellence is never an accident. It's the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, skillful execution, the vision to see obstacles as opportunities. And again, I think that goes back to the point being deliberate with your capability development and building your people. So it's not going to happen by accident. So plan it and be deliberate about it. And that's all, and that's where I work. So I put that there as a kind of closing slide, and thank you.
Super. Richie? So I'm going to open it to the online audience first if anyone has any questions, and then we can go to the room for questions. So folks, if anyone has questions, just take yourself off mute and you can ask the question. I'll give it a few seconds. So Gwen, Fortune has his hand up. Sorry, go ahead, Fortune, jump in.
I'm curious in terms of how do you manage the overlap between people's desire to be valued and their contribution to the organization's goals?
So people, but first of all, like, you know, people don't always understand or know what the organizational goals are. Like, so it may not always be relevant for them. So it's, but that's, you know, that's a learning for the organization as well as the person. But like, to me, that's joining the dots for them. Like, so going back to pull, so pulling the best out of them so they understand what value they can provide and how that ties into the organizational goals, and joining the dots for them. And when they're in their day-to-day roles and people are in the day-to-day roles, it can be really difficult to articulate that. So it's nothing people don't know, but it's helping them tie it together. That answers the question.
Thank you, Richie. We're getting a nod from Fortune.
Thank you.
Thanks,
So,
Fortune.
any other questions from the online folks? No? Okay, we'll turn it around if anyone has questions. So Aoife has hand up first.
Do you find it's one of the biggest challenges with continuous improvement when you said people often write the processes that they put more emphasis on the technologies that their business may use rather than the people that would actually be using those technologies?
Yeah, that's really interesting because a lot of the times, like, you know, the decision's already made about the technology, you know, and they don't know any other way. So that's a really, really tricky one to navigate. But I think that's so depending on the role you're in, but in my position, that's feedback I'd be giving the leadership team, you know, like the SOP is in place and written correctly, and, you know, they're doing the best with what they have, but it's not what it could be. Or like something like we all know sometimes people are only using 10% of these systems, like, you know, so they're writing the SOP on 10% of the system, you know. But I think SOPs good, put them in place, wrote correctly, but feedback to the leadership team that they understand that you know, just because it's on writing and it's the right way to do things doesn't mean it's the only way to do things. Yeah.
Policies are there to be bent.
What?
Policies are there to be bent.
Policies are there for a reason.
Jump in.
Thanks, Richie. I really enjoyed that. I don't know about the telephone bit because I recognise some of them really old ones. Thanks to be back in time. But I suppose the interesting thing to me, the people first and technology. I think that balance is really difficult, and I suppose the technology is driving behaviour. Just two things struck me actually, and I think it was Paris, but it was just seeing in the new year in 2024, and it was there, and everyone had their phones up on the countdown into 2024, and you sort of thought, what is happening? Because you would normally have the countdown and people would hug in, wishing people happy, but everyone was just filming the living countdown. So, oh God, this is, where are we going there with this? And that part of the technology. And then also, as you know, I follow soccer and football, and you go to a match and you used to celebrate the goal, but now the goal comes in and then VAR takes you back to a guy who's sort of 50 miles away in an office to decide, can you celebrate the goal? So
in some ways
that's
it's
bad.
brilliant, and some ways
Yeah,
it's like
and-
taken
And I
from.
think that's the thing. It's that, I don't know if you have any, I don't want to put you on the spot there, but it's that
Yeah.
balance of what people are getting used to in technology.
Yeah, because it's like, what's the new standard? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
It made me sad actually.
But you know what it
bring
is?
it in the new year. and
But like,
everything.
like with lean, you know, one of the 8 ways, waiting, like we do very little waiting anymore. And if we are waiting, we're usually doing something else. Like,
Yeah.
when was the last time someone actually just sat and waited? Probably on their phone, doing something. Could be productive,
Yeah.
might not be, but you're not really waiting. Like, you know, yeah.
I read a study on that, and what it's after causing is people don't daydream anymore, so the creativity is gone. So I was in the bank at lunchtime, and I was like second in the queue, and the person in front of me, the person behind me were just both
Yeah.
scrolling on social media.
Yeah.
And it's causing a genuine innovation problem because they're not getting that mental downtime. It's like opening the fridge, there's no food in there, close the fridge. 5 minutes later, you open the fridge, there's still no food there, but you keep doing it. So it is creating a challenge.
And
Fundamentally changed human interaction as well, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I often sat in canteens in big organizations where there'd be 300 or 400 people in the canteen. And there'd say at least 200 of them are
not talking.
not talking at all on this, like.
That's it, yeah.
And it's,
And like your point there, with everyone having their phone up, are they looking at the screen, or are they actually looking what's in front of them? But I was, okay, might be a big cringe. I was at the Furies last night and there was no phones allowed. So there was no phones out, and you know, it was like, it felt so much more authentic. Now I was itching to take a video, but it was so, and they're getting on like, but it was brilliant, and there was some crack, like, but I couldn't take the phone out, so no one had their phones out. So it's just interesting. And a lot of comedians now have the like lock boxes. So there you go. So they have technology enabled lock boxes that people put their phones in and they can't open, or the pouches won't open while the show's on, so no one can record the comedians, and that's getting more and more mainstream.
It's been in nightclubs for some years.
Headphones.
Not allowing the phones in the nightclubs as a part of admission.
Really?
If you, certain nightclubs, not.
Yeah.
Not the.
How much? Yeah, put them in like. That shows how much I'm going for very much. But I wouldn't like that though. Like, I wouldn't like to hang my phone up. But look, I also don't want people taking videos of me.
Provide lockers. You know.
Yeah.
Is it home?
Huh?
Leave it at home.
But because it's affecting, like you said, you know, the countdown, it's affecting this living in the experience.
Yeah.
That's a big part of
And
nightclub culture.
And isn't it funny, like everything in industry now is all experiential, like, do you know what I mean? It's all like, you know, what is it, the parks, Cedar Parks do experiences, Airbnb sell experiences. So like people are selling experiences, but then they don't really experience it because they're on their phone. So it's interesting.
Let's say that happiness, in order to achieve happiness, you don't invest in materialistic things, you invest in experiences. So like you go to a gig rather than, you know, buy a physical item.
Yeah. And it's like you could sit at home, or you could go to the cinema. Do you know what I mean? So people go to the cinema for the experience. But there's the flip side of that as well. Is so like we don't want AI and too much technology, but at the same time, I want my phone in case I need to call someone. It's important. Like, do you know what I mean? So, but that was all new at one stage. Like, do you know what I mean? So like, what would we be saying about AI in 20 years? Like, you know, I don't know. Have we gone off track?
A little bit. We'll take one more question from the room and we'll close it, because I close the recording then, and we can have the chat afterwards and so on. And there might be another question in the room. That's the thing. Anyone have a question, folks?
I thought the comment you made about some companies only use 10% of the system. And so it just reminded me of a recent example where only 10% of the company were using the system, but the other 90% were using the full system. And that company looks like they're going to be in trouble in about a year's time, because a particular 10% won't use it.
Yeah, really. It's interesting though, isn't it? Like, so it's like you can have all these fantastic tools. Yeah, so you're waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
Where interesting.
Tara has a question online. So Tara, if you want to unmute, you can
Easy questions only.
judge your question. Oh no, go tricky one then.
Okay, not really a question. I just really wanted to make a comment. Just to say thanks, Richie. I really enjoyed your people first and human lean focus talk today. As Richie will know, I've been in healthcare for 30 years, and for us, patient experience is a key performance indicator. And the reason for this is because studies show that patient experience reports are, in fact, a really good indicator of healthcare quality. And, you know, it's interesting that, you know, you spoke about Eve's pink socks, and the comments that we get in healthcare from patients about their healthcare experience is often those experiential things. You know, it's the compassion that they have felt. It's, you know, often very little about the fancy environment or that. And healthcare aside, even as employees, I think we all remember a great colleague or a great boss who made a lasting impression. So I guess I just want to very much agree that respect for people must be a #1 priority. And I think you also mentioned some very high profile healthcare incidents. And the unique thing about healthcare is that while we're making really good use of AI, we're still very much reliant on that human interface. So in terms of process, it's critical that we create processes to bring out the best in people. And love your use of the Swiss cheese. I'm a real fan of using the Swiss cheese because of that simplicity, and people can really understand how things have gone wrong in using that Swiss cheese. And I guess just the last thing to say is that I agree that recognition for those positive things and those little acts of compassion is really important. And especially in the face of the world that we live in, where we have this insatiable appetite for that news, where things have gone catastrophically wrong. And we forget about the people behind those incidents, that maybe it was the processes that led them in a very unsafe environment to be involved in an unsafe event. And a lot of good people involved in those on really awful events. So it's really important that in the face of all that, we're also aware of recognition and we have that people first approach. So thanks, Richie. That was really fascinating.
Thanks, Tara. And I think the recognition is it's nearly its own talk, but it will be. But thanks, Tara.
Awesome. Okay, I am going to formally close the meeting so we can end the recording. And once again, a thank you to Richie for a very engaging, very informative talk. And we hope to see everyone again next month for our next edition. So watch out on the meetup page. And thanks once again. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.